Welcome to a look at how to maintain your WordPress website and keep it nice and secure. My name is Dante St James. I'll be taking you through this one today as we go not just through the theory about how to do this, but we also explore some of the behind the scenes, actually in live website examples of how you do this sort of thing. So I'm going to share my screen and get this underway with you. First of all, a quote from security expert Troy Hunt, who's actually an Australian guy, but renowned all over the world for his approach to very sensible online security. WordPress loves to boast that it's the world's most popular web builder, but they're not so boastful about being the world's most hacked web builder. And we'll look at some of the reasons why it can be very, very easily hacked very shortly. In here, we look at the Australian Small Business Advisory Services Digital Solutions Program, which is presenting this course today in association with Business Station in WA, Regional Development Australia, Brisbane in Queensland, and Treaty Business Consulting in the Northern Territory. You can watch this again later on YouTube through the Business Station channel, where you'll find probably about 400 different videos from different presenters like myself, giving you free access to all kinds of great information and tools to be able to use for your small business. And of course, in my own channel, which has got about 200 different videos in it, please drop in and see that. I'm adding more and more of those every week, continuing throughout from August, September, right through until September next year. What we're going to look at today is what the different WordPresses are. So you got to look at those a little bit differently because they're not quite the same thing. A little bit of a, before you get a look, before you buy a website, a bit of a look and a bit of a warning, I guess, on what you need to think of before you commit to WordPress. Don't just letting a web developer talk you into going with WordPress, even though that's what I work with mostly. It's not the right web platform for everyone. We'll look at what it involved with updating plugins and updating themes. And we'll look at when updating isn't possible, what you can do. And then we'll take a live look at updating a whole bunch of stuff within certain websites that are not currently secured. And these are real live websites I'll be working on, who I've just taken on this week as new management sites for myself, because I do that. I manage WordPress sites and keep them up to date and well maintained in terms of their security for literally about 600 different websites and different businesses. And some of it is done for free. So it's really one of those things where it doesn't take a lot of time, especially when you know what you're doing. My name, Dante St James. It's good to see a few familiar faces in the audience today, so thank you for joining us. But there's also a few very unfamiliar faces I'm seeing as well. So welcome. I hope you really get some good value out of this. My background is from the University of New South Wales in Sydney as a marketing graduate, as also a business information systems graduate, both a bachelor's and master's there. I've done 6 levels of certification through the Chartered Institute of Marketing. My words are not coming out today. The New South Wales TAFE, also doing a bunch of micro credentials and working with Facebook's Boost program as a lead trainer, digital marketing associate, and media planning professional. Working with Google's Digital Springboard program and several government programs, including the Be Connected program, connecting older Australians with the internet, and the ASBAS Digital Solutions and New Business Assistance with NICE programs with small businesses throughout at least the Northern Territory, but also in Queensland and Western Australia. Now, starting off, it's really important for you to understand as a WordPress person that there are 2 very different WordPresses. There's WordPress.com, which is WordPress's self-hosted, everything included, updated for you service. So it's kind of like Wix or Squarespace in that you don't have to go and put it on your own web hosting. You don't have to go and get additional web hosting that you own yourself, but you also don't have to upgrade or update any themes or the core of WordPress or your plugins, because all that is actually done for you as part of WordPress.com. It's a paid system, starts at about $14 a month US, I believe, and then goes up from there. WordPress.org, though, is while it's still maintained by the same company, it's an open source project, which means that not only is it free to access, but it's also contributed to by a huge community of developers who help to keep the thing running and keeping it safe. That's why there's so many updates with WordPress, because things change and they want to make sure that they make it as safe to use and as secure to use for the maximum amount of business users as they can. So when you're looking at WordPress.org, that's the software WordPress installed on your own web server. So you control the access to everything. You control the upgrading and the updating of all your plugins, the core files of WordPress, and your themes as well. It's a very, very distinct difference there. One's updated for you. The other one you have to do yourself. Now, the vast majority of WordPress websites are in the WordPress.org basket. So it's software that's installed on people's web servers that they own the access to and that they own the responsibility to do those updates on. Now, the difference is WordPress.org needs to be downloaded and installed on your own web hosting. It also comes ready to install on most web hosting services. I use a mixture of Fast Comet, Venture IP, SiteGround. I use several others, and just about all of the web hosts, if they use a thing called cPanel, will have things like Installatron or Softaculous, which are both installers for things like WordPress and lots of other website systems and different scripts that allow you to run websites and do certain things on them. There's not many web hosts that don't provide this. I'd say that probably the best out there are things like Venture IP, because they just an excellent web host within Australia. Digital Pacific are also very good in Australia. WordPress is also very well entrenched with SiteGround. SiteGround is one of the world's biggest web hosts and one of the highest quality web hosts you'll ever work with. They are very, very specific, very, very on the ball, and very, very tied into what things like WordPress need to operate well. They've also got WordPress plugins their own, which help you to keep it up to date, keep it safe, and keep it protected without you having to go to very much trouble at all. They're a little bit more pricey than most web hosts, but once you actually use them and you've used other web hosts, it really is worth having a look. My own clickstarter.com.au website is hosted on WordPress. Sorry, not WordPress, on SiteGround. I will at some point in the future be bringing that across to Venture IP, based in Sydney as well. But for now, it's running really well, loads in about 1.4 seconds, and is always up to date. And I keep it very, very tight. I pay for a lot of things to make sure that thing hums like an engine should hum. Now, when it comes to WordPress.com, this includes your web hosting, and you often purchase your domain name along with it too. And it has automatically it has an automatic tool that automatically updates itself, its plugins and its themes, so you don't have to do that. Though it does have fewer themes and plugins than will work with it than your own version on your own web hosting. So there's some things that are just not compatible with the hosted version of WordPress. So before you go out there and start getting all excited about your new website, it's very easy to be talked into, I guess, the excitement of getting a website that looks great. The problem is, though, you don't always know what that's built in. And it's one of the first things you need to ask your web designer is, what are you building my website in? Is it WordPress, or is it Joomla? Is it Doodah? Is it Wix or Squarespace? And what kind of access do I have to that? A lot of people don't know what they're really buying, because let's face it, tech terms are for people like us, propeller heads who do this stuff every single day. But honestly, this is not the way most people live. They don't walk around thinking about websites all day like I do. So you've got to have some sort of, I guess, an idea about what you're looking for before you go and commit to spending, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $15,000 on a website. Ask yourself, will you be capable of maintaining your own website? That's so important, because there's a million different things that can go wrong with a website. There's 100 different ways of having to maintain it. So you've got to ask yourself, is this a learning curve I'm willing to go on? Am I willing to learn how to maintain my website once I've got it in place? Now, quite often, your web developer may include a support package in there. They'll charge you a monthly cost or a yearly or a quarterly cost on certain things they'll help you do to maintain that website in place. Others, like myself, I often throw in the maintenance as a free thing as terms of what keeps it secure. But in terms of making changes and supporting the website outside of that, then that would be an extra charge. I charge about $250 a year on top of the web hosting. In fact, that is the web hosting plus the support to help you out when you get things a little bit wrong. But the actual act of updating your plugins and all that, you don't have to pay for that. That's something I just throw in as part of one of my packages. I don't know that a lot of web developers do that, but it's one of those things which for me, to update 600 websites is one click of a button. For others, it might be going into 600 different websites, but for me, I've got it set up really sweet, so it doesn't cost me time. It's just something I do each morning. Then ask yourself, will you have the access you need in order to maintain your website? Now, this is important because not all systems will allow you to do this. If your web developer has built your Wix website, for example, on their own account, then they're not going to give you access to that account because that gives you access to every other account on their system. Likewise, some people will build, and we've been caught with this in the past in my agency as well. We've built websites on WordPress or Joomla, which is our previous system we used to work on many years ago, that were on shared hosting accounts. So that if you had to log into one account, you'd be logging into all the accounts, which was a bit of a problem. Otherwise, then we had the opportunity to go, well, if you're not going to log in this way, how do we set it up so that the client, you, or at least your technical people can log into your own space to manage your own files and do it yourself? So are you capable? Are you willing to learn? And do you have the right access you need? Are the questions you need to ask before you take on any new website. Also ask yourself, if you don't have the access, then how much is your web developer going to charge you to do this? And does your web host include things like backups, or do you have to do them? Most web hosts, the good ones these days, so when I talk about the good ones such as Fast Comet, SiteGround, sorry, just went forward there a bit. Fast Comet, SiteGround, Venture IP, Digital Pacific, DreamHost, Bluehost, HostGator, they all have a level of daily or at least weekly backups that they do that you can restore things back to. In terms of in putting plugins in place that allow you to then go, okay, I can now run a plugin, run an update, and if something goes wrong, I can immediately roll that back to the state before I install that plugin. That may be a little bit more advanced, and you might have to get some special software included on your website to handle that kind of thing. And is there anything on your site that you will break if you run updates? This is a big problem with WordPress websites that are built offshore. Often when things are built offshore, they're not built with off-the-shelf kind of pieces of software. They're not common plugins or common themes or common functionality. Everything's been custom coded by a team of developers, often in India is generally where these things happen, and has been over-engineered. It's been overthought. It's been turned into a very, very complex setup that you need to go to them to be able to get things done. So if you go, well, I want to run the latest WordPress update, they may have said you do not run any updates on this site ever because it will break things. There's no excuse for that. There's no reason why they should need to do that. There's plenty of off-the-shelf things that are upgradable that should be able to do it. So ask your developer that to make sure that everything they use is updatable, that your website is updatable, and that all software is updatable, and to not custom code anything, except for instance, when they want to custom code the way something appears on, say, for instance, in a theme, where they can use what's called a child theme to isolate those special things from the stuff that gets updated. Because if they do those special things within the theme and the theme gets updated, it overwrites all their special stuff and it's lost and the website's broken. So how much will updates cost you from your web developer? And does your web host already do the backups for you, or does someone else do that for you, or do you have to do that yourself? And are there things that you will break if you run updates? All things that need to be asked before you get a WordPress website. Then the other thing you ask yourself is WordPress actually the right platform for you at all? Wix is an amazing, powerful platform that's all built into itself. It's fast, it's efficient, it's way better than it used to be 5 years ago. You can just get as lost in there as you can with any other system, I guess. It's still a learning curve, but it is an all-in-one system that developers can't break because it's yours. It's your account, your access, your particular website to work with. So there's a lot less pieces and a lot less moving parts that you have to work with in there. Same with Squarespace, which is that sort of black squiggly lines thing. Squarespace is a very, very capable web builder that's also built to, I guess, help you to build the site yourself. That's ultimately what to do, to build your own site using templates, and you just change the pictures, change the words, and then you've got a brand new website just for yourself. Weebly is very much the same, although they've now got a version of Weebly which can be installed on your own web server. I've seen that quite a few times. Not as customizable as WordPress, not as powerful as Wix or Squarespace, but still quite commonly used. Canva has their own sort of weird website builder, which doesn't really build websites, but kind of does. And then Google Sites is probably the cheapest of all those site builders because it's free. There's you don't have to spend any money on it unless you get a domain name, and then it's only about $22 a year or something like that. So it's a really cheap, very easy way to update things yourself. So WordPress may not be necessarily the platform made for you, but it might be. And we're going to move forward assuming now that you are working with WordPress. So we're going to look at updating WordPress plugins and themes and the core files of WordPress itself. So why you need to update is because the WordPress people put out new functional improvements, new security updates, new usability, new updates that work with other updates of software that runs on web servers, and web hosts may force updates as well. So when all this comes out is that, for instance, if I'm doing this through SiteGround, for instance, SiteGround tells me all the WordPress sites that I've got on their servers and tells me they're all about to be automatically upgraded. You might want to check them to see if anything breaks. Now, I know that the sites that I've made won't break because we build them in such a way that they don't get affected by upgrades and updates. But that's not the same with everybody's sites. And I've had some absolute doozies break because they've been hand coded and built in such a way that things just got weird. In terms of plugins, these are the #1 way that hackers can get into your WordPress site is through code that isn't particularly secure. And it's code which has been custom built in very, very specific ways to increase the functionality of a website through a plugin. This also means that plugins, when things are updated on WordPress, don't always work properly. So for instance, if WordPress updates its core files and say from 5.8 to 5.9, something would happen in that change, which means that certain functionality in plugins or certain display types in themes won't run properly anymore. They just won't run the way they're meant to. So this is kind of important because the developers of these plugins and of these themes need to be working closely with WordPress to ensure that they are compatible when WordPress does major updates to its system. Same thing happens with themes. You want themes to run faster and lighter. You need to update them very, very frequently. One of the reasons why I moved away from the Joomla content management system onto WordPress is because the lag between the Joomla project creating updates and the plugin theme developers and the layout, what they call template developers, were just so lagged behind those changes so that you couldn't run a safe, secure update on Joomla without breaking your site in some way, shape, or form, because the things that they ran was just so different from what they were prior that it took 6 to 9 months for developers to catch up. So for people like me, that's not great. For people like you, you wouldn't see the difference out there, but I see it because I see 36 out of 38 websites unable to be updated because they've got incompatibilities that won't work with the new version of the software. WordPress is a little bit better than that. And it does happen to have some problems though, where it may stop working when, say, for instance, there's a different version of PHP or CSS or something coming out. And a good question from Chris here, how's PHP different from Joomla? Now, PHP is the language that things like WordPress and Joomla and many other platforms of content management systems for websites are built. So WordPress and Joomla and Drupal and many others are called content management systems. They are there to manage the content in your sites, but they're also design systems. They help you to design sites. So they do both the back end of putting the content together and the front end of displaying that content. PHP is the language, the computer language that is used to make that happen. CSS is another language that's used to help with the visual aspects of what is happening here. So it's like HTML is the language of the web. On top of HTML is a thing called PHP, which gives function to the web. So it allows the website to do things apart from just displaying pages. And then you've got another one called SQL or MySQL, which is a database language that's used to host all the information that sits on your website lives in a database. All the display stuff happens through CSS, and PHP is the functional engine. It's like the motor that says, okay, I'm telling you to display this using that information from the database to produce what you see on a website. Hopefully that's a bit clear, I hope. How soon you should be running these updates after they're released is, a lot of people will tell you a lot of different things, but I like to think that WordPress core update released, excuse me, for a reason, and they should be released within 24 hours. I believe there's no excuse for most web developers or most web hosts to be holding on to old versions of WordPress, especially if they don't break things. So there's certain updates that I'll call breaking and non-breaking. So non-breaking updates, not that you'll necessarily know what they are, they only have a point after them. So it might be 8.0, 8.1, 8.2, or they'll have two lots of them. And then you'll have the big breaking ones, like Joomla, for instance, is going from version 3.9.27 or something like that to version 4 very shortly. And Joomla 4 is very different to Joomla 3. In fact, it's so different you can't just do a straight upgrade. You have to redevelop your site in this new thing, whereas WordPress, for its entire history, hasn't required that. It's been able to smoothly update from one to the next, as long as things haven't been custom developed. Chris is just asking that web developers use PHP, CSS, HTML, and MySQL on any single website. Yeah, that's exactly what they do. So HTML is the basic agreed language of everything on the World Wide Web. It then uses PHP to make functions happen. So things like click here to open this particular object, or to download this thing, or to make this thing into a slideshow. CSS then says, okay, that slideshow, make it appear with a border around it and to make it smoothly go from side to side. And then SQL is the repository of all the text and information that says where things should go and what they are that go there. So yes, every single website will have that, unless it's built in other languages. Most are not. Most of them are in PHP. Some are built in Microsoft languages. Others are built in things like what we call JavaScript or Node.js, which is another way of designing and laying out functions on a website. But all of them will contain HTML. Most of them will contain PHP. The things that you should be running after their release, I guess the theme updates, you might want to check with your web designer first. But I know in our case, we don't have anything that breaks when there's updates like that, because we use only things we know will be forward compatible. And then plugin updates, you want to run those within a week of them being introduced, because there's not usually a lot of things that will break with them, not like there is with themes, but they're often they're released a little too soon, and you may need to actually see how other people test them first. That's the sort of thing, though, that if you're working with a web developer, that's something that they can do. That's something they'll do in the background to make sure that everything's safe for you. But if you're doing this on your own, these are things you should consider, I suppose. Now, when updating is not possible, and you are not able to do that, and you're not able to run updates because the developer told you it'll break everything, then having a good web host is going to help you there. So just because you haven't been able to update everything doesn't necessarily mean the hackers are going to run wild with you, because there's certain things that can sit in front of hackers that stop them from getting to you in the first place, to be able to see what old versions you've got before their bots go and try and take advantage of that vulnerability. So a good web host, I've mentioned a few there. SiteGround Ventura IP in Australia, Digital Pacific as well as in Australia. I would then say in America, you've got things like HostGator, Bluehost, and DreamHost, very good as well. In terms of firewalls, so firewalls are just like the firewalls you have in your computer. They're designed to stop all non-essential traffic coming into your computer via the network. So when you've plugged in the network or you go on the Wi-Fi, there's a firewall, for instance, on my computer, which says, hey, this thing's trying to make a change on your computer. Is this okay? And just about all the time it'll be no, because I'm not trying to update that particular piece of software or make that change. So the same thing happens with websites, is if something comes in from out the internet to try and change something on your website, then what we'll do is put that prompt in front and say, you can't do that. I'm not letting you through to do that because you don't have the authority to do it. And I've been told to watch these files. So firewalls within your WordPress setup are very, very important because they enable you to block traffic and instructions that are not authorized to make changes on your system. Systems like Cloudflare is like, let's just say it's like the bouncer at the door. So Cloudflare does a couple of things. Number one, it will block known malicious bad traffic, and it'll stop them from ever getting to you. It actively looks for the patterns that come with malicious traffic. So again, stopping them from ever getting to you in the first place. But it also does things like speeding up your website by putting a version of your website on lots of different servers all around the world, so that wherever you are in the world, you get the version of that that's the most up to date. So for instance, I run Cloudflare in front of my site, and that's increased my loading time from 7 seconds to 1.4 seconds because I'm employing certain technologies and paying a bit extra from the free version to make things run faster. Now, most websites will not need this unless they have lots of traffic. Now, I have about 1,200 visitors a week on my website. So to me, that's enough traffic for me to go, I need to make this thing run really fast and really easy for people to be able to load. Otherwise, I won't be able to continue to get that great traffic. So when you are not able to update everything, it's important to be able to then update what you can update. You can't update everything necessarily. I was giving you an example of those decent web hosts before. Fast Comment are okay. They were a bit dodgy there for a second, but they seem to have come good again. So I've kept on with them again. But your good firewalls are things like WordFence, the all-in-one WP security and firewall system, WPMU Dev. That's a system that I actually pay for and allows me to update those 600 sites I was telling you about before that I've been managing their updates with. That's how I do it, is through that system. WordFence is probably the most popular of all the security plugins for WordPress. I thoroughly recommend on a WordPress site that you have at least WordFence on there. WPMU Dev is probably expensive for most people to be doing. I do it because I manage so many damn websites. But for WordFence and all-in-one WP security and firewall are both basics that you should have in there to give some protection to files being changed that shouldn't be changed. Even if you're not able to update anything else on your website, having those in place will put about 95% protection in front of you that isn't there if you don't use them. The Cloudflare we're talking about, the free version, does include that traffic protection. So you can have, both these guys and also have Cloudflare working together, and they will work together to, take that 95 up to about 97%. So it's a very, a very edge difference, but in combination, it is powerful. And then that whole thing, if all those files, update whatever you can do safely without going and breaking anything. So how would you know what you can update safely? In your case, if you're just building a website for the first time, or you're managing just the one website, or you're not really consider yourself to be an expert in WordPress, then you might just go, well, actually, I don't feel safe updating anything. Everything feels like it'd probably be a little bit too scary to update. So it's up to you. But I would say ultimately, if you don't feel comfortable doing it, don't do it. Just rely on having these firewalls in front, as they will help make a big difference to what's able to set off any vulnerabilities that are in the back of your website in the first place. So where do we go next? What we need to do is look under the hood at some actual WordPress installations, where I'm going to go to my other screen, pull you down here, turn off that. It's very complex when you're doing these webinars to be able to just jump from screen to screen and option to option. I'm going to share you through another set of screens, and we're going to go into the back of a gift shop that I manage there. I've deliberately left their plugins unupdated today. There's a big lot of plugins came up today with plugins. So I'll just take you up there onto desktop 3. No, this one. There we go. Okay, in this one, it's for Shine Gifts, which is a gift shop in Darwin. And as you can see, over on the left, we can see there's updates. Now, I'll try and make this a little bit bigger so you can see it a bit more clearly on screen. That on the left, there's updates. It says 4. So there's a few things all kind of screaming for my attention. There's 3 there, there's a forms there, there's an updates here, and there's this Elementor data updater as well. So what I want to do, it's already like it's telling me to update this to another version as well. So a lot of these things are going to depend upon whether this client has paid their bills to their different plugins that may not have been done. So the first port of call for me is updates. And in updates, it's going to show me a screen that's full of the different updates I need to run. So the first one is that the WordPress core, there's an updated database process happening in the background taking a while. I can run this now. It's saying I need to do this. It's saying that these plugins all need to be updated and this theme needs to be updated. So I generally feel like the theme is one of the safer things to update. So I'm going to run that down here. Update themes, and let's see it run. Now, what this does, it will take down your website momentarily and put up a message saying this website's under maintenance mode. But as it runs, and it's trying to run the background, it's just these silly things here in the way. Get the other way. There we go. So it's telling me now that it's now successfully upgraded. So now that I know it's successfully upgraded, I'm going to go back into the updates. And I'm going to see what else needs to be updated and see if it all can be updated. So this is a WordPress core thing that's telling me that. So it's telling me that that we do need to update the WordPress to a more up-to-date version. So it's saying that we have the latest version, but it's saying that a database update process needs to happen as well. So I'm just going to quickly run that just to get it out of the way. Okay, it's now done. So I've updated to the most recent version of WordPress. It's happy with that. The web hosting has done that automatically. Now I've got all these fellas down here that want to update. Now, it may be that these are showing that there's 100% compatibility with each of these with the current version of WordPress. But with Gravity Forms, that's not known. Gravity Forms is not that bad, actually. It's not one that's attacked very often. Contact Form is, but not Gravity Forms. So I'm just going to pick all those and update them because I feel very confident that's not going to break anything. So again, it goes down into maintenance mode and that will begin to update. Sometimes it could take a minute or two. It usually doesn't take very long. They're not particularly huge files to be loaded. And there's stuff that you can be doing in the meantime. Like for instance, when I do this on my collection of websites, this automatically happens in the background. So I set it off and it takes about an hour every morning of just working itself. I don't have to do anything. And then at the end of that hour, it'll flag any problems to me saying, I couldn't update this, I couldn't update this, I couldn't update this. There's some websites that just wouldn't allow the automatic update, and there's others that will allow it. So at the moment, I'm updating about 6 different plugins. So it's going to take a while to refresh and come up with that. In the meantime, I'm going to let that run and pop over into another website, which is for a service apartments in Darwin. The first thing I notice straight up is that WordPress is out of date. So that's the first thing I'm going to do is make it safe by updating WordPress. So as that's running in there, I've got this one running. I've got these guys running over here as well, taking a while. So this one's saying, yes, an updated version of WordPress is available. I'm going to update it. So as that's running as well, this is a bit of a bigger one. These guys up here, so we've got a lot. There we go. It's finally actually done it. It's actually updated all of those. So you notice over here on updates, I don't have a little 1 against it or any numbers. If I go into my updates now, I find that everything is now safe and up to date with that particular website. So that one's done. It's looking good. It's just taking a while to get there. Come on, guys, refresh. Fortunately, I don't host their website. So it's still doing a database run. So I'm just going to run it now just to update that. It's also popped up another update over here. So what it's done is there's a theme or another plugin. So it's already updated something in there. It says, oh, I've got another one for you straight away. So let's update that one and see how it goes. Popping back to our other ones, updating WordPress. It's still sort of running around, processing that request. So we'll let that one continue to run. And then I'll pop into site number 3. So I've got 3 sites open, about 4 sites open here at the moment, all that need some updates. So this is another guy who needs the WordPress core updated. It also needs, it's prompting me for doing things like leaving reports, and I don't want to leave reports and recommendations or anything. So what I'm going to do now is pop into this guy's updates under dashboard and then updates. There's 9 of those. So have a look at what they look like. Now, meanwhile, over here, this update's run. So I can pop back to my dashboard in my first site, and I can see that it no longer has any updates required. It's running nicely with no flags there. I can then go to the front of that site just to make sure I didn't break anything and see that the website is working fine. This is not one I built. I didn't host this, but it's one of those sites where I was helping out someone on the ASBAS program and offered to help them out with their updates at least. Back to Magnum, we've now updated to WordPress 5.8. If I pop back to dashboard, I've still got 6 things that need to be updated. So let's quickly pop in there. Again, all these, and I've got a theme that also needs to be updated. Now, one thing I'll notice, I don't think that this particular website is using the 2021 theme. And I can find that out by going into Appearance and then Themes, and then seeing what themes are actually in use by this client. So they're using Divi theme, but this theme in here was included in the update. So we don't need this. We're going to get rid of it because it's just bloat on the website that isn't used and not used. So if you've ever got an active theme in place, so this guy's got Divi, or if you've got like a child theme and an active theme, you can get rid of all the other themes because they're not used. It's just taking up room. And it's also brought down my updates to another manageable level. So if I go right down, I can see my Divi theme's up to date. It's removed the 2021 theme. So I can just run all these guys. I'm very confident with these. They're all 100% compatible with the new version of WordPress, but I also know from installing experience that all of these all of these are really, really safe plugins that are well supported by their developers. So we don't really need to be concerned that those developers are not doing things that are up to date. They're all very reputable and good developers. And how do you tell whether a developer is good or reputable when it comes to plugins? When you go into the plugins directory, and we'll take a look at that very shortly, you'll see that they've got lots of people have installed it and they're rating very, very high. So that's usually a very good sign that your developer of your plugin or your theme has support and has frequent updates. They don't just like develop it once and then walk away. Oh, that coffee's good this afternoon. Let me tell you that. So this one's updating Defender Pro. Whilst all this is happening, well, it's just about finished actually. It's still running a couple more. Just 2 more to go. 1. All the updates are now being completed. My updates have gone away. I now no longer need to run any updates. And again, I will check this site to make sure it's actually running the way it should be. Visit the site. I'll have a look at their pretty front page. There you go. So you can go there and see these service apartments in the heart of Darwin City where you can go and rent them. So everything's working there, nothing's broken. I can safely get out of that one. And now we go on to another one, which is for Palmerston Lawyers. So this is a site I did actually build under protest. It wasn't the design I really wanted to give, but you know, the client's always right. You can see there's a whole bunch of these that I've left here, deliberately left them open so we can do this. That 2021 theme is showing up again. So when I see that, I go, well, I know that I built this in Divi, not 2021. So I'm going to pop over to the appearance and themes, and I'm going to get rid of that 2021 theme because it's just a waste. There, and out we go. And this is the previous theme that the client used with their old website. So that can go as well because we're no longer using that one. There we go. And this one is actually asking for an update. So I can either run the update from here, or I can go back to my updates under dashboard and then updates and do it from there. But let's just run it from here so you can see it running in a different place. So you can run your theme updates from within the themes. This one's running, shouldn't take long. It's not a very big set of files. You may strike some problems with updating when these are when you don't have a subscription to the theme developer to be able to provide those updates. So this is where people get in trouble, as they get developed these things on paid plugins and by their web developer. And then they're stuck with having to not only know how to fix their website, but they also get stuck with themes that are not able to be updated until they pay for a license theme. They didn't realize that, 6 months in, that they have to pay $200 for this theme. So in my case, I always use Divi because I've got a lifetime unlimited access to that, and everyone gets the same code, so that because I don't need to update it. It just becomes updatable for everybody. Some different, Divi's very, very generous with that sort of thing. They had a once in a lifetime sale that I got onto, which enabled me to do that. But things like Elementor, for instance, is a very similar page builder. Beaver Builder, they don't tend to do that. So you have to have a specific license that you need to pay for every year as part of owning your website. But if your web developer doesn't tell you that, then you kind of get stuck. So if you're building it yourself, you'd know these things. So what I now know is that's up to date. I'll go back into my updates. I've still got another 9 things that need updating, including the core of WordPress itself. So what I'm going to do, I'll look at all these updates I need to run. What I'm going to do first, I'm going to update WordPress. So it's got the core of WordPress wants to run. I'm going to do that. I know that it'll work. I very, very rarely have ever had a problem with updating WordPress and making it break things. It's usually the updating of themes. Really, the most problems seem to happen with themes when you update those, because they're to do with what the site looks like. And if there's a slight change in there, the way things work, then that can ruin the entire look of the website altogether. So this is unpacking the update for WordPress. It's starting to install all that. It's running in the background. So it's telling you how it's going, copying the required files, putting it in maintenance mode. And then all of a sudden, it'll show you that the installation is now complete. It's disabling the maintenance mode, upgrading the database. So it's just saying, I need to upgrade the way the database or the MySQL works. And now it says it's done, it's updated, and we've now got an updated WordPress. Again, I'm going to go into my updates and run those again. And I can see all these guys. Now, I'm not sure whether all of these are going to work, but let's try. Hopefully none of them need special subscriptions. As I built this site, I didn't build the original thing that sat on this site. So maybe some things that don't want to update. Although it looks like they're all going through successfully. 4 out of 7, 5 out of 7 looks like it's going to be okay. Yep. And it comes. Running. There's a couple of extra things I'm going to do on this website before we go. So one thing is an example of the some of those protection software. So the firewalls is the word I was looking for it. So I'm not going to install WordFence for this particular one, because I've already got what is called WPMU dev in there, which includes a firewall within it, but I haven't installed it yet. So I'm going to install that to make sure this site stays really well up to date and protected. So this one's just coming out. It's now completely been updates have been completed. So now what I'm going to do is going to pop in and delete something that's going to make this site safer. So I'll pop into WPMU dev, which is like a big suite of bits of software that I use that help to protect and connect all the WordPress sites together that I work with. And I'm going to add a plugin, and this plugin is going to be called Defender. Now, Defender is this guy here, Defender Pro. I'm going to turn him on. It's already installed. I just got to activate him. Okay, so as that's activating, it's going to then want me to run some kind of scan that's going to scan for problems that are there already. I'm also going to turn off one of these things. So this one called Shipper Pro right here, that's no longer required because that's what you use to transfer the site over to different places. So I'm going to deactivate that one. So these are all the little things you look for. So I haven't been to this website for quite a while directly. I usually just remotely update it, but I'm just noticing, hey, no, maybe this is something I should update now because I don't need that plugin anymore. And there's plugins you don't need. It's really good to remove them. So things that are deactivated under plugins over on the left, where you see all your different plugins, you can then just look at the inactive ones. Cyclone Slider and Shipper Pro, neither of those are needed. So what I'm going to do is select them and I'm going to delete them. They're not required on there. All they do is just provide bloat that every time the updates need to run, I need to then update those pieces of software that I'm not even using. Then we go back to active ones and then we're fine. So there's also something here that's allowing us to run auto updates. So I can go enable auto updates through all these guys so that I don't actually have to run the updates. What they do is every time that the developer runs some piece of updated stuff in there, it will actually automatically do it. Now, there's some things here that don't have automated updates, like Hummingbird Pro, Display Widgets, and Defender Pro. That's okay, because 2 of those get updated through WPMU Dev. Now we've got all that done. We've set up all of our automated stuff. We don't need that guy there. I'm going to pop into Defender Pro, and I'm going to actually look at it. Now, this is the same for WordFence. You'll be able to do these scans, very, very similar process. And then I'll be able to run a scan that tells me what is the current security state of this website and what recommendations is it running that I should update myself. So I'm saying it's running through 5 out of 12 security recommendations. So over here, I've got a recommendation that says disable XML RPC, which is something which I don't use on this website. So I can disable XML RPC. Then it's going to say manage the security, manage the login duration. So currently what happens if you log into the site, it stays open for 14 days logged in. It recommends that you do it no longer than 7 days. So I'll do that. It's probably going to log me out. So I'll have to relog back in. Nope, that's all right. Then I can look at disabling trackbacks and pingbacks. Don't need them. They're something that's like worked in a very, very old way that the site worked. Good question, Chris. Is this a WordPress.org or WordPress.com site? This is a WordPress.org. So this is installed on the client's own web server, not through WordPress's web servers. Preventing user enumeration. You don't even know what that means. We don't need it. It's just not needed on this particular site. The file editor, didn't even know there was one. So let's get rid of it. So this is shutting down all those places where it's considered there's going to be issues that might pop up. This one, which is about preventing information disclosure, is saying that when a bot goes and looks for information on your website to see what you're running, so it can go, you know what, I'm going to try and attack it if it's got these certain things running. This will prevent that from being asked. So it's using, in this case, it's already said that it's using a light speed server as opposed to Apache or Nginx or IIS, which is internet. That's the Microsoft ones, but we're running light speed. So that's update the htaccess file, which then is a security file, which says that's all now done. So now we have no further recommendations we need to run. They're all done. We've actioned them all. Well, it's saying there's one still here, but there's actually none. Oh, change the default admin user account. So we have apparently a user account with the name admin, but we've set a very, very strong password for that. So I'm just going to ignore. So I've run through all those different recommendations. The site is now nice and protected and secure. And we'll see up the top that we no longer have any updates that need to run. So I check this now to also see that the website hasn't broken. As I said, not one of my proudest websites I've ever built, but it's one that I had to build because the client wanted birds for solicitors. Go figure. So everything seems to be loading okay. About us. Yep, that's loading fine. We're looking good. So now we move out of that site into another one finally. So this gets a bit repetitive after a while. This is what people have to do when they don't run automated systems to do all these things. So in the back of this particular website for a business consulting firm, we can see they need to upgrade a few things. So updates first. Let's see what needs to be updated. Any second now. It's taking a bit longer. This poor thing is located on a server in another country. So I've asked them to move it to a closer place, but they haven't yet done that. So as you can see, some of the security plugin needs updating, as well as all of these other guys here. So let's run those updates and see what washes up. They should be fine though. Most of these are fairly well off the shelf kind of things. And I know this company is very much compliance based, so they will have bought licenses for all these things. They don't like running unlicensed software because that's they're business consultants, so it's something which they obviously don't do because they won't get away with it. You know, it's pretty bad if you're going and telling everyone else to be compliant and you're not compliant yourself. They're also a company that works on ISO certification. Chris just asking, when you said servers, did you mean hosting space? Yeah, same thing. So when I say servers, I mean hosting space. So kind of interchangeable for me. Right, so that's updated everything without any problems. So I popped back here, it's still saying there's some updates to run. So let's have a look at what those updates are. I'd say one of them at least is going to be the theme, and the other one might be WordPress itself. So let's have a look. Come on. As I said, this one's a little slow. So we've got this plugin here, MailPoet, that's been decided that it's another thing that needs updating. Plus, we've got down here the 2021 theme again, so we can get rid of that. Go to our themes, go to theme details and get rid of it, so we don't use that theme at all. So now we've just got Divi. So we'll go back into our updates. And I have a feeling what it said before, it needed to run an update on Divi, which is the theme. So let's pop down. Yep, let's run one on Divi, update that theme, and we'll go back to MailPoet, which is actually not used on the website. So we actually can get rid of that. All done. And now we go to our final update. See if we can run this one or whether it's going to cause us problems. Running. And so this one isn't available because it's premium and it requires a license. Now they don't actually use that anymore. So I'm just going to pop into the plugins directory where it's going to tell me this particular one needs updating. And we're going to get rid of it. We don't need it. Come on. This poor old website does take a little bit of time. There we go. So if we pick out, again, looking at the inactive things that aren't used, get rid of them. So they've actually deleted Defender Pro from there. So I don't know why that is. So I'm going to take that one out because it needs to be reinstalled again. And let's go delete those inactive plugins. Once that refreshes, bit, one's gone, second one's about to go. Yeah, these guys definitely need to change their web host because their site does run a little bit on the slow side. So then we're left with that one that I'm actually going to enable to resecure their site. Because at some point, they've left their site unsecured. Now they're on a web host that does have a lot of security in it, so they shouldn't be having too many problems. But at the same time, it's good to run this because it really needs to be activated so it makes the site safe for everybody that's on it, not just for the owner of the website. So now we've got all the active plugins all running along here. This is the one I want to get rid of. We're not using it, so I'm going to deactivate and delete. The MailPoet can now go and be deleted. So now these guys have got a nice up-to-date website. I just want to now go and check their security setup. So in Defender Pro, or this could be WordFence. As I said, these things are very much the same from one security plugin to the next. And it should be giving me a couple of things. Look, it says to me, I've already actioned everything. So I've got no security recommendations to run. So now that that's in there, quickly pop into the website to make sure nothing broke. Shouldn't have. It's a pretty bulletproof website that runs really well. There we go. I'm seeing the logged in version. So that's why I'm seeing all these repeats. It's a particular plugin that's built to give alternative front pages depending upon what your particular interest in their website is from previous actions. Very clever. I built the original of this website, but it's since been upgraded by Tim from the Chartered course, and he's upgraded it with all these advanced things. So he's done really, really well. So it's working. It's all good. I can get out of there. And now I've completed doing my upgrades of all those websites to keep them safe, secure, and making sure things are running smoothly and not going to be super slow like they were before. In the case of this final website, it will run a bit slower because their web service is slower. But once they go to a faster web host, something like SiteGround or through to Ventura IP, they'll have a much better idea of it, and it's going to run a lot better for them. So that brings us to end this particular webinar. Thank you for going on a bit of a geeky journey in the back of WordPress websites with me. As I said, you're not going to be necessarily able to update everything, but if you're at that point where you haven't yet built your WordPress site and you still have to do it, remember to ask yourself those questions. Are you capable? Are you willing to learn? And do you have the access you need to your website, your domain, your web hosting to be able to do those kinds of things? And if you're not really in that sort of position, hey, book us in for an ASBAS Digital Solutions session. We are taking bookings for this month as well on the old program before it goes out into the new program in September. It'd be really good. Now, Chris wants to see the icon for Defender Pro. Let me just quickly find that for you. It's under a thing called WPMU Dev. So it's a suite of products. So what you probably want to do without buying a suite of products, it's going to cost you $80 a month to run. I would go for WordFence. So if you just look for WordFence, that's the one to go for because it's free and does everything that Defender Pro does. But the difference is that you won't need to go and get this big system as well as it. So just go for WordFence, and that'll be the one that will do the work for you, Chris. Thank you so much for joining me. I really, really hope you have a great week. And as I go, I really hope, oh, sorry, missed my text. Can I contact you briefly to see where I can go? Eve, just reach out to me through my email address. Let me just quickly go. My email address is this. It's coming up in the chat window right now. Just reach out to me on that email address, and I'll hopefully be able to answer some questions or point you in the right direction that you might need to go. If you have a great week, and I hope to see you in the next one of these coming up. I think tomorrow I'm doing like a big 2-hour one on how to understand the basics of marketing. So I hope to see you in that one.